To the representative of Yemen. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam President. Ambassador Nikki Haley, Permanent Representative of the United States at the United Nations and President of the Security Council, Mr. Mark Lowcock, Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and the Coordinator of Emergency Relief, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Security Council. Greetings. At the outset, allow me, Madam Ambassador, to express our profound appreciation to you for giving us the opportunity to speak at this esteemed council for the second time this month. And we wish you and the delegation of the United States success and strength. We would also like to express our sincerest gratitude to Mr. Mark Lowcock and his team and all those working in aid delivery for the great efforts that they've exerted in order to alleviate the suffering, the humanitarian suffering in my country. Ladies and gentlemen, the Security Council today is discussing the humanitarian situation in my country, and while we greatly appreciate this international attention, we believe that these deteriorating humanitarian situations are not incidental and are not a result of a natural disaster. Their reasons and their causes are clear, and those responsible for them are known to everyone. Dealing with the results and the symptoms simply without dealing with the root causes is a dangerous means of dealing with conflicts that is not destined to success. And this day specifically, 4 years ago, on the 21st of September, 2014, the Houthi militias backed by Iran, the world's state sponsor of terrorism, launched a coup against the state and against the national dialogue and everything that the Yemenis have agreed on. And the President of the Republic, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, said at the time that what Yemen is being subjected to is, and I quote, a conspiracy that is dragging the country to civil war, end of quote. And he affirmed that he will spare no effort in performing his constitutional responsibilities and will work on restoring state authority. And since that day, the Yemeni government, under his leadership, has exerted every effort genuinely in order to put an end to the coup and to regain state authority, and has been making one concession after the other and extending its hand for peace, a peace that is based on the terms of reference and that is in support of the United Nations efforts and its special envoy to Yemen, Mr. Martin Griffiths. The Yemeni government has made it its goal to achieve the dream of its people to build a civil and modern federal state that supports democracy and rights and human rights and freedoms and is based on the rule of law and good governance. And this is the only path that we wish to take. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, your esteemed Council has agreed on a track to support peace led by the United Nations and based on the 3 terms of reference that have been agreed upon at the local, regional, and international levels, i.e. the Gulf Initiative and its implementation mechanism, as well as the outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference and the relevant Security Council resolution, especially 2216. This path is the only path towards peace. And in every round of the peace talks, and the most recent of which took place in Geneva, we had hoped to arrive at positive results in the humanitarian field, at least in a manner that would alleviate the suffering of our people in all the matters that were due to be discussed. However, the coup forces would intentionally absent themselves at the last minute, and this is an indicator of the absence of their will to discuss any humanitarian efforts, because that would cost them a card that they've always played internally and externally. This is a matter that the international community must be aware of and realize. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of the humanitarian situation, all of the cities that are under the control of the coup forces since 2014 have witnessed systemic raids. They have witnessed the systemic terrorization, humiliation of the civilian of their civilian populations, the recruitment of children into the battlefields of death, as well as the spread of black markets and the theft of the capacities of our people in broad daylight. And this is a dangerous development that we've repeatedly warned of. The suffering of thousands of families in Al-Hudaydah and all the areas under the control of the coup forces are mainly, this suffering is mainly embodied in the absence of family members in the dungeons of the Houthi prisons or through the loss of income because the Houthis have confiscated over 70% of the state's assets, according to UN reports, or because these families receive no humanitarian aid because of the obstruction of this aid or their theft or their deviation by the Houthi militias, as has been testified to by the United Nations organizations. And this is the crux of the conversation on the confidence building measures that have been sponsored by your esteemed council and with the support of the special envoy and the sponsoring states in Yemen. The Hodeidah governorate is now the main challenge in humanitarian aid because the militias of the Houthis are the only ones benefiting from the seaport, while the residents of the area are almost suffering from or are starving to death. And this cannot last for too long because we should not allow the threat to continue to navigation in the Red Sea, and this must be done while giving due attention to the protection of civilians. And I do not exaggerate if I say that the humanitarian aid that is being given to Yemen is unprecedented in the region. And I would like to specifically mention the aid that is being given by the states of the coalition, especially the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Madam President, my country and the coalition states have sent a letter to the Undersecretary General explaining their concern over the safety of civilians and aid workers because the road between Sana'a and Hodeidah is witnessing clashes that are near the areas of fighting, where the Houthi militias have transferred and transformed the city of Hodeidah into a military center. They have set up many checkpoints that are in the way of and that are hindering the movement and passage of civilians. They have also used the Red Sea mill silos and warehouses for military purposes, which Mr. Lockhart just mentioned. And we have stated that we in the Yemeni government and in the coalition realize that these roads are being used by commercial trucks and humanitarian trucks, and therefore we actively work to secure these roads, and we do that by removing the mines that were planted by the Houthi militias and which pose a danger and a threat to civilians and aid workers as well as healthcare providers. And this is simply one of the precautionary measures that we take. The Evacuation and Humanitarian Operations Cell has made it clear to all stakeholders that there are many other alternative routes that go from Hodeidah to Sana'a, and we and the coalition states sent a detailed letter today to the OCHA on these roads and routes. We in the Yemeni government confirm our commitment to international law, international humanitarian law, as well as human rights law, and we call for condemning all those who violate these laws equally. We call for intensifying efforts and for coordinating with the relevant official bodies. We call for establishing main hubs for the UN organizations working in the humanitarian field in the temporary capital Aden, as well as the major Yemeni cities. And this is a request that has previously been made by the Yemeni government and the Arab coalition in a manner that would guarantee the decentralized nature of humanitarian work, in a manner that would not leave it open to any complications stemming from military operations. Currently, there are 5 humanitarian aid areas in Yemen. For each of these areas are land and sea corridors that would guarantee that aid reaches all the people of Yemen in an equal way. With regards to the depreciation of the Yemeni rial, the government of Yemen has established a higher economic committee that has adopted several measures to stop the deterioration of the currency, including preparing or setting the right circumstances for exporting oil and gas and preventing the flight of hard currency, as well as stopping the importing of luxury goods and increasing interest rates. And here I'd like to say that the United Nations and states and donor institutions can play a pivotal role and an important role in stabilizing the Yemeni currency if they were to channel their aid to Yemen through the Yemeni Central Bank, as is being done by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Madam President, today, the 21st of September, is a bitter memory for our people who call it the day of the catastrophe. However, what fills us with hope is that in a few days we will celebrate the memory of the revolution of the 26th of September, where our people got rid of the racist rule of the imams that these rebellious militias are trying to revive in Yemen. Madam President, these are the laws of nature. The night ends and the sun always rises. Will our sun rise soon? Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Yemen. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.